Hello, and welcome to the Keeping Her Keys podcast. And welcome to 2026. I am here to share a recorded class from a new course that I'm teaching called Destination Crone. This is all about centering the crone, centering ourselves as we age. I'm calling all of the now and future crones into this circle. And I'm pleased to announce that this will also be my next book that most likely will be coming out in 2027. The crone has long fascinated me, unsettled me, brought me further into myself as I explore the territory of my life as I age. And as I was coming into this third act, I'm 57 now. A few years ago, I discovered that there's so much written about aging as women, like a lot of emphasis on menopause. And there's such a rich history of crones, hags, and witches in folklore. And of course, Hecate is often viewed as a crone. She certainly has the spirit of the crone, being the wise, wild one who cannot be contained and refuses to participate in the mainstream. There's so much here in the crone's country. And as I was starting to explore this a few years ago, I came upon the realization that what I wanted was to set the crone as a destination. I wanted to be in her country. I wanted to orient my compass towards becoming this wise, wild, older woman full of magic and mystery, arriving at a place in my life, in my old age, that is rich, deeply connected to the natural world, part of land, sea, and sky, not disconnected, not living in a male-centered universe that hyper focuses on age denial, tries to sell us products to block aging, says that older women aren't gorgeous. Things like cellulite is wrong, wrinkles are wrong, all these things. And then I thought, why? Why do we have to do this? I don't have to do this. I can set the crone as my destination. I can honor the process of aging through mythology, but also, as always with me, I'm at the crossroads of modern life and the deeper world. Look at research and science about aging and bring this all together. And we are just getting started with the course. We had a great class today, talked about things like aging and financial precarity, which, for women, we are typically in financial situations that might not be ideal to bankers, for example, but we have caregiving needs. We to take care of the people that we love, and we make choices about what a meaningful, rich life is to us that is not the typical banker-approved, male-center way of doing things. And this is rich and beautiful and for us. And I'm so excited about Destination Crone. You can join the course by going to the Keeping Her Keys website and stay with the podcast. We are keeping the keys of the crone. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Let me know in the comments. Send us an email and hail the crone. We wanted to talk a little bit about a few different figures and just share some notes. I would say more like prompts to get you thinking about what it means to be in the Crohn's territory. So we've got slides for that, and we'll jump right in. So when I was developing Destination Crone, this idea of the mother of stones, the kayak, is often referred to as such. And we had such beautiful presentations with those photos of the stones earlier. So this mother of stones, the thing that came through to me was this idea of spiritual archaeology. And that's what we do in her country. But it's not like archaeology, exploitative archaeology, like that kind of archaeology that was common like I mean, I think even up into recent decades where like the man archaeologist went into a different country and dug up treasures and took them back to his home country. Kind of in that great man, the great man adventurer goes out and does this and brings back the treasure. Very much that hero's journey kind of metaphor. But I think the Crone's journey is about like this kind of spiritual archaeology, which I don't think it need like yes, sometimes we might need to dig, but w- w- our tools are different. Like we don't need sharp trowels. We often need to simply pay attention. Even when we're going through the layers, there's no violence here, right? There's no um dishonoring of the earth, kind of like our own interior layers, or the world of the crone. That this this painting I've had for some time, and I think if you look in the grimoire file, you'll see the link to where the image comes from. It's this idea like she is in harmony. So our spiritual archaeology, it's like found pine cones or found stones or even found bones. It's like it's natural spiritual archaeology.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
Um, and this is a lot of this is done in our memories, emotions, and in her mysteries.
Mhm.
Um, we think about the kayak as the one who, according to the tales, like she from her apron she tossed stones and that created like the mountains and the landscape and the world basically. Um, this isn't a story of domination over the world. It's a
Yeah.
story of being in flow.
Yeah.
So it's a different spiritual archaeology is different in that it's about being in flow and observing, like going into our memories, going into her mysteries. And this is like a dance of bones almost, like it's so old. The parts of us that will live long after we leave this life, like our bones endure. And, to like, and I think I liken this to like a dance of bones, even if it's chair dancing and we're not shaking our booties,
Mhm.
like it's not about being like linear and we have to do this. It's like we move and groove through this landscape and we interact with it rather than fighting it. Does So
Like,
that go ahead.
no, I just wanted to say it. Look, for me, it feels like it's about the finding and not the conquering.
Oh, that's excellent. Exactly. It's about discovery,
Yeah.
right? Not pillaging. It's a very different way. Found treasures
Yeah.
and not taking things that don't belong to you,
Yeah.
right? So let's talk a little bit about some of the mysteries. And for everyone here with us live, I'd love to hear in the text chat more of your thoughts of this. So, what are some of the Crohn's dark moon mysteries? Well, the natural cycles, life, death, birth. The crone as the aged woman or the wise woman or presbia, which means the elder. She's contains it all.
Mhm.
And so that gives her like all of the experience, and all of the knowledge and wisdom and so on of the natural cycles. I think personal things that can come up for us, like acceptance, freedom, intuition, the interior life, individuation, which really is the process of becoming wholly and authentically who we are, and rejection of societal rules and expectations that don't serve us, that aren't good for us. The spiritual, afterlife, deeper world, dreams, fate, transcendence, spirits, and very much like living in the liminality, crossroads, hedges, magic, guidance, wisdom. So these are things that are associated with the dark moon and also the crone, because something that I noticed the deeper I went into exploring like mythology, folk tales, and so on associated with crones around the world and across times is that what they are associated with is very much what the dark moon is also associated with. And of course, being a Hecatean, Hecate is associated with the dark moon as well. So these to me are the dark moon mysteries. And it really is about like seeing with eyesight that doesn't need external light, that you adjust. I don't know. What are your thoughts on all this?
I mean, I just want to add one word. That's the wisdom,
Hmm.
right?
Okay. So I selected, I wanted to talk about this, something that we're doing with each section of Destination Crone is kind of bringing it into, we're exploring these kind of deeper aspects, but there's also like we have bodies. And as we age, there is a lot to unpack. So I'm going to try to bring in every week something that's just about brings us back into our physical selves. So we're not just, entirely like in the deeper kind of realm of the crone, but also like seeing ourselves physically become a crone is such a powerful experience. Seeing the wrinkles, the gray hair, the weight gain or weight loss for some people, like seeing all of these bodily changes. And menopause, I think for a lot of women is like that is the big thing,
Yeah.
right? It is like it is a crossroads in life. A perimenopause, you're kind of in the threshold. Menopause, I think you're like right in it. And then on the other side, postmenopause, but it changes you. And there's so much in our society that can make us feel less valuable as we age. And I wanted to just say, let's just take a moment here, early days in the program, to say, like, the crone is beautiful, wise, and powerful. Like, let's just set all of that aside and, about beauty standards and what is power, what is richness, and just go into saying she's beautiful here in this space, and we individually each claim that as we enter her territory. And we see her as aspirational, like she is the destination. That's why, um, you know, chronology, the radical art and science of becoming a crone, like destination crone, that is where we're going in her country. We are becoming a crone ourselves. Um, so it's all about kind of reclaiming her, remembering her, giving her flesh again, giving her life, seeing through her eyes, and just that this space is sacred. And going into I want to say this, letting her awaken, come to us, understand ourselves like on our terms and not seeing things through that kind of patriarchal gaze,
Yes.
right? Um, there's so much. So I just wanted us to kind of let's pause for a moment and have this discussion. Um, but the caricatures can be cool as well.
Mhm.
Like we might, like, I'm thinking about those caricatures of the witch. And, like part of me is like, oh, that's horrible. But sometimes I'm like, also interesting. Just, to see the witch with her green skin and her pointy nose. We're getting more into that next week, so we won't get into that today. But, like, just to see, but then it gets complicated, right? Because that is an image of the old mystical woman specifically designed to make her seem ugly
Right.
and mean.
Right.
And I think that's what we're getting into when we're going to be unpacking a lot of the stories that's coming up in the future weeks. We're getting into all of that, right?
Mhm.
Um, and there's a lot. So I wanted to say something. And
Say something. I just can't I can't take my eyes off this image. I'm looking at her hands. And I'm just thinking, yes, these are worn and wrinkled hands, but these hands hold power.
Mhm.
What have these hands held? Like what have these eyes witnessed?
Right? Babies, people, babies being born, people holding the hand of someone leaving this life,
Yeah.
like doing the dishes, digging in the dirt, good hard work, holding a pen, all of the things that are sacred and beautiful, but also the things that can be challenging but give life meaning. And she's pure magic,
Yes.
right? Okay. All right. Okay. So we wanted to talk about three women that are to us important spirits that often hang out with us and talk to us and that we dialogue with. So we're going to be talking about Demeter, her well, not really sidekick, her helpmate, Babo,
Yeah.
and then Hecuba, who we haven't stopped talking about since we did that episode.
Yeah.
Because but when we get to Hecuba, we'll talk more about this. But I wanted to, just as we're getting going in the course, I wanted to talk about Demeter because this is something that's really fascinating to me about expressions of the crone. If the crone is not like a little haggard woman, then it's like, oh, but that's not Demeter's not a crone. But it's like when I've been doing all this research, I had to stop like just looking at hags and old grannies
Yeah.
because for the Greeks, they did not see the divine as aged. Like there are no statues of Demeter looking like the mother of a grown daughter.
Right.
Just like with Hecate, there's no statues. So if you look at the image on the bottom, here's Hecate. Um, what is this? Mercury helping out Persephone. Demeter's kind of hard to see, but she's over there. So if you're looking for more on Demeter, I just want to say that we have a podcast episode on Demeter that we did. And in Covina, there's lots of Demeter content in the Crossroads as well. And everyone in Covina has access to the Crossroads. We're not going to retell the entire Homeric hymn to Demeter,
Mhm.
but you can find a complete reading of that by me in the Crossroads, and I'll be sure to link it in the replay of this so you can listen to the whole story, and then to the full podcast episode. Okay, why I wanted to bring Demeter in. So Demeter has been a spirit that as my sons grew up, she became more and more important to me because there is this part of the story where Persephone um, is in peril and Demeter loses it.
Yeah.
And then she won't let the world be fertile anymore.
Yeah.
And so she goes actually she lies about who she is. She goes undercover.
Mhm.
Undercover Demeter, great mother, like super goddess, goes undercover in the Homeric hymn to Demeter and becomes like a child's nanny or nursemaid.
Mhm.
And then things happen. She's trying to change the baby into a god, so she's putting him in a fire. That does The baby's fine, but Demeter gets discovered for doing this, and then it gets revealed that she's actually Demeter and not A nursemaid. Okay, so we are entering the Crone's territory. Demeter is the mother of a grown child. She was a single mother.
Yeah.
Zeus wasn't much of a dad. Um, she was very close to Persephone, from the different myths, we know this. And when Hades took her, there was the kind of the trauma of her worry for Persephone, but there was also this like it's an identity crisis. And this is the thing I've gone through as my sons have grown up. It's like, well, who am I if I am not the mother of so and so? And I think this is a real lesson of the crone, like that I wanted to start strong with. It's like
Mhm.
this is what the destination crone is about. It's about figuring out who we are when we are not in relation to anybody else or the things we do and the roles we have. Because when Demeter lost her daughter, she lost her identity.
Right.
Like literally in this story, like she
Yeah.
she gave up who she was. Um, and I mean, first of all, we've all done that at some point in our life, hid who we really were. Um, and even in this story, she's hiding who she is in an attempt to lessen her pain,
Right.
right? Like
She's like hermiting.
she's hermiting, but not isolating. Like she's isolating, but not like going in a hut in the woods and
Right.
in a more of a kind of a typical crone. She's
Mhm.
isolating by denying her own power, by denying who she is. And I think there comes a point in the story when she's outed and returns to her glory. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
What are my thoughts on this? I'm gonna try to make it. I'll say how I relate to this Demeter story is for me. Like initially, I think of her. Obviously, she is Demeter. She's like this great mother fertility goddess. But the grief and rage that comes when Persephone is taken is a highlight for me. Like I mean, and then, like we said, when she like recedes sort of into herself,
Hmm.
like what happens with just think about yourself and your own emotions. Like, have you ever been in a state of just like grief and rage? Like this sort of mama bear, like, hurt my child, destroy, just gonna tear everything down and and just like and then, living with the consequences of these things that happen that are out of your control,
Hmm.
like empty nest or like, uh,
Career change, like you get
yeah,
laid off at work or
yeah,
your relationship ends, like
yeah.
these things that you cannot control.
And then I think that after that, like the natural cycle comes like this period of like sort of who am I now? Like there
Hmm.
is this period of contemplation and reflection and like asking and like, like I don't know if dissociation is the right word, but
But it is,
there is
like it
like
is.
a, lost in the mess of what has happened. Yeah.
And sometimes we need to go through that
Yeah.
process. Like we need to maybe be like Demeter and try on different identities and then, have that moment when we're like, no, this is actually who I am.
Yeah.
And I can, and ultimately in this story, Demeter emerges stronger than ever.
Right.
A deal is brokered regarding Persephone with
Yeah.
Hecate's assistance. And then she bursts the world these great rituals
Right.
that were like accessible to thousands of people for several hundred years. So her gift of when she got over her identity crisis was not only was she fulfilled, but she was able to offer meaning to other people, like
Yes.
to her people. And I think that's, like the journey through figuring out who we really are is like that journey of standing in our own power and owning who we are. And ultimately, like that ripples out,
Yeah.
right? When other people see us doing this, it does become like a guiding light for them to perhaps have little seeds planted that they too could. stop kind of like bowing down to the pressures of society and what's expected. Um, broker deals like they did for Persephone,
Mhm.
and then rise stronger than ever. I think there's so much in Demeter, so I wanted to mention her early on. So she would be like, if we look at this story, she's an empty nester. She's at the her child is grown. Her big focus in life, other than of course the fertility of the entire planet, her big focus in life has been her daughter,
Yeah.
and that is she is on the verge of becoming a crone if she was a mortal woman,
Mm.
right? Menopause and all of that business that would have been is layered kind of in this myth,
Yeah.
right? That when your children, like as a Greek woman, when your child leaves home, menopause comes. Like, did you lose your value in terms of society because you were no longer
Right.
an act of mothering?
Right.
But no, in Demeter's story, she goes through a crisis, but then she becomes even more powerful. She becomes wisdom and transcendence and the mysteries.
Mhm.
It's such a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so I
Woo.
so I put Babo last because Demeter's story is heavy and there's a lot for us to examine within ourselves. But Hecuba's story, or Hekabe to the Greeks, is incredibly dense, I would say.
Yes. Dense is a good word to describe it.
We do have a podcast episode Kristen and I did on Hecuba, and there's a chronology listens playlist right in the course for Destination Crone. And then you can also, this is on the Keeping Her Keys podcast, so you can get it wherever you listen to your podcasts. This is a dense
Yeah.
story where there is transformation, but this is not a Hallmark Christmas movie.
No.
It is a heavy, heavy story. And I remember when we were researching Hecuba, do you remember how we got started? Because I know we had planned to do a different, like, Hecuba's not technically a goddess, but I'll just say goddess. We had planned to do a different goddess, and something happened.
It was Iphigenia.
We were going to do Iphigenia, who is associated with Artemis.
Yeah.
And in some stories, Iphigenia was Hecate
Mm.
in mortal form. But we've done a lot of episodes on Artemis, and I talked about Iphigenia before.
Yeah.
And then somehow we both just got
Hecuba.
sucked into Hecuba, like obsessed. Like I remember we were like chatting in the middle of the night
Yeah.
about Hecuba
I was up all night, like reading and like,
and sobbing. So this is dense. This is heavy. You're gonna cry. Um, Euripides has two plays. He does have a play called Hecuba. And then she's also in the Trojan Women as well. So the main source of information about Hecuba comes from these two plays, although there are other sources as well. She was not a goddess. She was not a religious figure. She was a mythological figure.
mm,
And I think part of her story is tragic. So again, listen to the full podcast for more on her story. Just to kind of cap up, she was a good mother, a good wife. She lived a good life. She ruled over a land with her husband Prius, right?
mhm.
Um, they were good.
She was good. She was good. It
They
just,
all the things were good.
yeah.
She was just and kind and all the things that you would want to kind of age into, right?
Yeah.
And then the Greeks came, as the Greeks did,
Yeah.
and completely upended her world.
Yeah.
But there was a thing that happened first, and that one of her sons came back with a woman.
Yes.
You want to jump in here? You want me to keep going?
And we You can keep going.
Okay, let me know if I get anything wrong, okay?
Okay.
Um, so the woman he came back with, it was Helen of
Of
Troy,
joy.
which
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone knows that name. She was beautiful, and her son, but Helen had been married to another man who was also like a lord in a different realm. And her son maybe shouldn't have done that. Maybe stealing someone's wife,
Maybe so.
maybe so, but he really loved her. Because
He
again,
did.
Hecuba's family are they're it's hard because it's like these are stories. Euripides was Greek. He tells a story from a very
He
Greek
tells it from a
perspective.
great perspective.
She is a foreigner, therefore she is a threat. Hecuba and her whole family were threats. So we're doing a little bit of reimagining and saying, that this is, this, well, maybe he shouldn't have done that. If, Euripides, definitely no, should not. Helen of Troy should have stayed where she was.
But something that Euripides did well, though, was like bring her grief to the forefront.
Hmm. Or grief.
Yes. Yes. He really humanized like her grief and made it.
Palpable, like even 2 centuries later.
Yeah. So, do you want me to, without telling her whole story?
Well, you want me to finish the story?
Yeah.
You want to
Yeah.
pick
You
up with
you
the
finish.
story?
You finish.
Okay, so Helen, nothing but trouble that Helen. The Greeks invade. Hecuba loses everything. Her husband's killed. Her sons are killed. Her grandsons are killed. Daughters are
Also,
killed or raped. It's things are horrible. She's imprisoned. There are there's if you watch the whole podcast episodes, I believe we get into some like modern retellings of this story.
mhm.
Um, the woman who does stand up for the classics, Natalie.
What is
Oh, the rest of her name. Anyway, if you Google stand up for the classics, you'll find her. She has written a really great book on the women of called The Women of Troy. If you're really called to this spirit, she can Hecuba can be quite beguiling for some people who are kind of called to do this talk about spiritual archaeology, because when we go into Hecuba, like this is grief, this is loss, this is being true to yourself.
Mhm.
Aging, I put aging into realness on there
Yeah.
because like in the Women of Troy and even in Euripides, there is this kind of portrayal of Hecuba that because she's an older woman, she knows herself more.
Mhm.
Like she's not innocent and naive like Euripides kind of portrays the younger women in his
Mhm.
works. Like she knows what's what.
Yeah.
Like she's a ruler in her own right.
Yeah.
It's just by allowing her son to bring Helen home, like she chose love
Yeah.
and there were consequences. Very bad. Like her whole family dies. She loses her power. She loses everything. But there's like she's regal and she won't bow down in her grief to kind of kiss the feet of the Greeks. Like, no matter how bad, if you could imagine a world in which your home, your money, who you were, your identity, everything has been stripped away and you are imprisoned, who are you?
Right.
And so, Demeter goes through this identity crisis. And so there's this why I wanted to include Hecuba, why she felt right at this point in the course, because there is this call to acknowledge without wallowing in that fortunately we won't end up like Hecuba, but we will end up in similar places to Hecuba. We're not in an ancient Greek tragedy,
Right.
but there is something about facing that fear of losing everything you love
Right.
that the crone calls us to say, you know, if you lost everything you cared about, who are you?
Right. I think she also brings a lesson that you can be good and just, like, you can make, all the right decisions, you can be a good person, you can check all the boxes, and, like, life is gonna happen, and tragic things are gonna happen, and who are you gonna be, like, when you ultimately, like, you have to stand on your own 2 feet?
Right. Are you going to become embittered? Are you going to conform to save your own ass? Um, and then also ultimately the end of Hecuba's story is like, what are we willing to die for? Because in the end of the story, events conspire and she gets, in one version, she gets stoned to death
Yeah.
for not bowing down to the power structure. And there's something about that aspect of her story that really, really resonates for me. Like, and I ask myself that, like, what am I willing to die for? Like, what would be, what is actually important to me? Not convenient, not nice, but what are those things that I would die for?
Mhm.
I would sacrifice it all for. And then in some versions of the story, Hecate, um, more on that in the podcast episode, comes to her and changes her into a dog, a black dog, I believe.
Black dog.
And so there's that transformation,
Yeah.
that she becomes Hecate's attendant and helpmate,
Yeah.
right?
Well, there is a connecting thread for me that feels, it's like a prominent point in the story, and I can't really describe like what it evokes in me, but there is when she was stoned to death in the story that she was stoned to death, like she was described as howling, like she didn't go down without a fight.
Mhm.
Um, she was howling. Um, and that just I know that just feels really important. Like, what is that? What would you die for? What would you fight for?
Right. And that strength, I think she can be a kind of companion, like a spirit that comes to us as this archetypal, strong matriarch
Yeah.
who's wise. It's that version of the crone that isn't quite the more typical one, who she's living in her hut all by herself, as it like a hag. She's like a matriarch of a family. Um, and but she's a wise and powerful crone. And like you said, she is strong and she will not bow down to them. And I think that's such an important message. So if you're up for Hecuba, Kristen and I have just been completely enchanted by her since we first started doing research into this, like as this spirit of an expression of the crone, um, that doesn't bow down, that knows grief and loss and suffering and still knows who she is.
Mhm.
She's still a queen.
Yeah.
They can't take that from her, even in death. So we're offering you Hecuba alongside Demeter, as you are entering the crone's realm. And we wanted to lighten the mood.
I just look at her face. Miriam
Okay,
Margolyes.
you gotta talk about her.
I mean, I just look at her. If you know Miriam Margolyes, you should, or if you don't, you should. Um, she is amazing. Uh, very wonderful British comedian. Uh, and yes, she is an icon.
Of what? For what? What does she stand for?
She is an icon. Shoot, for me, just kind of hope and levity and getting something about her, like, if you watch her work, like, you'll see that she just really embraces and enjoys, like, the simple pleasures of life. She puts that, like, at the forefront of who she is. And she also, like, takes a realistic look at things. She tells the truth. She tells it like it is. She's like the ultimate crone. No bullshitting with Muriel Margolyes.
And very sex forward.
Very sex forward, very honest.
and also finding levity. I was inspired to put her on this slide after I watched this session she had with the actor Alexander Skarsgård recently, where she's putting like he's pretty open and fluid in all things, and she managed to make him squirm in his little bisexual leather pants. Um, and I thought, "That's Balbo right there." When I was watching the interview, I was like, "That's Balbo."
Yeah,
And just then I was thinking about, she's been ma I think they're married. They got married, her and her long-term partner,
I believe so, yeah.
but they've been together since
For
the '60s or
yeah,
something ridiculous. And, like, her and this woman, they've had this, like, 40+ year relationship, and, like, they never lived together. It was always on their terms, and there was always this kind of, like, raunchy lesbian vibe to her, even though she was super successful and, she's been a TV presenter and an actor.
he's
She is an OBE, a member of the British, so that makes her a Dane, right?
yeah,
Um,
um,
so she kinda makes me think of Bobo,
she does. Look at that face.
and she isn't trying to be anything else except what she is
Yeah,
at the age when you kinda look around, I mean, like, Helen Mirren is gorgeous, and I think Marion's gorgeous in her way, but when you kind of contrast that to like, her look and her energy and what she talks about, we were watching a movie with Judi Dench in it the other day,
yeah,
and I'd say, like, let's put Judy more on the side of Demeter things,
yeah,
but Marion is just like that bow bow. She's like, "I am gonna talk about my vulva," which
yeah,
is what right? Like, I'm gonna talk about it. I'm not gonna deny it, and it's gonna be both serious and funny.
yeah,
And there's this, we kind of go through like, I wanted to kind of set this up like, yeah, like we go through things, identity crisis, loss, but there is also this kind of liberation
yeah,
that happens. Like he's like not giving a fuck anymore,
yeah,
right? Like I am who I am. Um, and then there's also a lot of women when they hit now some women when they hit menopause, that's it. They're not interested in sex at all anymore. But other women like, have a rebirth because they're not worried about like, people who are, um, heterosexual and, having male partners, they're not worried about pregnancy anymore. So there's a kinda liberation. You can be body. That's where it comes from Babo. Um, and you can maybe get into that. So I think in the story so we gotta talk about Demeter and give them a little bit of a background of Babo. Um, so in the Demeter story, so Demeter is sad. She's having her big crisis. And then she's at a little party and she won't socialize, we'll just call it. She won't socialize basically. And Bao, who was there kind of as a servant, um, lifts her skirts and shows her what's underneath of them. And this makes Demeter laugh.
mhm,
And there's many surviving. I like this statue. There's another one that kind of shows Babo as just a big old vulva and a teeny tiny head with two eyes. I didn't
yeah,
put that on the slide. Um, so there's this too, right? Like who are we? We're bringing in some joy, some curiosity.
yeah,
Um, I think the Crohn's assignment here for a lot of women, if you like haven't gone down below and figured out what's going on down there, you should do that soon. Um, right? On yourself. That would be another Crohn's homework assignment. Own it. Um, but also it's just like it's okay to be sexual or not sexual. It's okay to make jokes. It's okay to be a little off color. Like you don't always have to be serious
yes,
about everything.
yeah,
Be a little babo.
be a little bother.
You can be a little horny, a little racy,
Yeah,
maybe show a little cleavage, just because in the story of Demeter, Babo serves that purpose. I think, like, yes, she makes Demeter laugh, but she's also like a reminder in the story that like Demeter's life isn't over. Look at this old woman here.
Yeah.
You know, she's telling these jokes, she's showing me her hoo-ha.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the crone is not like to have your children leave you doesn't necessarily mean life is over.
Mm,
It might just look a little different.
mm,
And then I believe the image in the middle is one of the many, many stories of where a handsome young prince goes into the forest and there's an old crone and she's in some kind of dire need and he somehow helps her and he kisses her and poof, she's actually a beautiful effing princess. There's so many of these stories. It's
yeah.
just like this is just a little subgenre of crone stories. There's so many folk tales like this. Um, and I just threw that on there like in the spirit of levity after talking about Hecuba and Demeter, this whole thing about, you know, like older women and younger men or younger sexual partners in general, and how that can kind of like put the oil back in your engine. Like, and that's okay too. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's not all like heavy grief and memories and identity crisis. There's also these aspects of being in the Crohn's territory too that you know, maybe you should take a young lover
Mhm.
or not. The choice is yours. Okay, what are your thoughts on all this?
I don't know. I just think Baba, yes, bringing levity, but also just this like face of honesty and authenticity, in the midst of grief. I just really appreciate. Um, yeah, just it's not. We were saying it this morning, like, and not to. I mean, sometimes you have to make light of it. Sometimes it's not that serious.
Right? It's only life after all,
Yeah, bring
right?
some levity.
Finding love,
Yeah.
finding your own desire. And I mean, we're not limiting this to sex, like desire, erototokus, which is an epithet, um, or we tend to use erotic to mean sexual desire, but eros is actually just the spirit of desire. Like you whatever you desire. It usually that's a sensual pleasure, but it doesn't just mean sex. Like so, you know, where's your bobo? Like where's your erogenous zone? Like
Mhm.
what is in this the kind of the ancient meaning of eros is desire. Like what do you actually desire?
Yeah.
Um, which may or may not be sex,
Hmm.
right? So that we just wanted to end on a lighter note. And yes, we will talk more about the prince saving the old crone. But I reframed it a bit to be like, yeah, why shouldn't she take and then she's like rejuvenated. She feels 20 again. She might be however old she is, but you know,
Yeah.
get those juices going again. And okay, okay, we need to uh transition to talking about the assignments for this week in Destination Cronin. We'll do that as a standalone episode. Sorry, recording. She has to live with me.
I love Baba.
I know you do. And you're cute when you get all flustered when we start talking about sex. I'll just say that because we are recording. I thought I turned the recording off.